in for today. So let's get this thing going. Great. All right, so day two. I hope everyone had a great day one yesterday if you were with us, and if you weren't, don't worry. We'll be we will be picking up where we left off, but it should be able to get up to speed pretty quickly. And I'm looking forward to day two today. Again, on the kind of housekeeping side of things, recordings will be shared daily, and you'll get all the previous recordings every day. All will be uploaded to YouTube at the end. Feel free to drop some messages. I don't think we have any polls today, but again, if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A or the chat. My co-founder Dalton is here again today, and he'll be helping out in the chat itself, and I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. Let me just get that configured real quick, actually. Great. And so yesterday we spent a lot of time kind of setting the foundation, talking about first just how an LLM interprets prompts and words in general. Today we'll be going into deeper, more sophisticated kind of actual methods and tips and tricks kind of, and advanced methods, all based in research of how you can leverage these different methods to get different results from prompts from LLMs. We'll look at how you can easily connect data from a CSV or a Google Doc to a prompt and launch that to your team, all with kind of no code through PromptHub. And then we're going to create a little kind of workflow app will summate news and analyze news and turn that into kind of a automated workflow. So a lot of hands-on stuff today. And hopefully we'll have some Q&A kind of throughout. And we'll probably hold some time at the end as well. So again, for those of you that weren't here yesterday, and it's worth repeating for those who were, our main goal with PromptLab is to help you get better outputs from LLMs, whether that is for a product that you've built and having your users use your prompts, or it's in some internal tool, or just using ChatGPT. We want to make sure that you can get the best outputs from LLMs, and so we are here to help you with that. And I noticed I forgot, but just for anyone who doesn't know me, I am the co-founder and CEO of PromptHub, and as I mentioned, we're super excited to be doing this with you today. And so let's talk about some prompt engineering methods. We think it's really important to stay on top of the research because it's so developing at such a breakneck speed. There seems to be a new paper out about a new method or some new breakthrough every month relating to prompt engineering. So we do our best. I personally do my best to stay on top of it and find the ones that I think have the most kind of legs to stand on, and bring those as templates into PromptHub and onto our blog, because a really good method can really go a long ways. As we've kind of seen, little changes to a prompt can make a big difference. So big changes to a prompt can have an outsized effect as well. And so we'll run through a couple of these. Again, everything we'll look at today is in PromptHub, and I'll have Dalton drop the sign up link and an access code for anyone who still needs it. So you can get in access today and you can try out all these different methods. Awesome, thanks. So yeah, Dalton just dropped that in the chat there, so feel free to try that out. You should be able to get up and running. So kind of starting with the base type of prompting method, if you could even call it that, is just a zero shot prompt. This is just direct prompting is also what it's called, but just telling the model what you want, just straightforward. Give me this, give me that, do it like this, do it like that. So in this case, write me a summary of 1984. Building on top of that is a few shot prompt. And so what this does is it leverages kind of in context learning, which means basically you're teaching the model inside of your prompt. So if we look at this prompt here, we're doing some kind of like sentiment analysis. So this is awesome. That's a positive sentiment. This is bad, negative sentiment, and so on. And then you'll see this last part, what a horrible show, and there's blank. And the LLM will know to kind of fill in that blank. So this is really helpful. Honestly, this can get you pretty far. It's helpful in cases where you have good concrete examples like this. It's helpful. You see it a lot in like mathematical use cases too that help the model understand how to kind of take the order of operations into effect. And again, if you have examples, this is like a really easy way to kind of upgrade from a 0-shot to few shot, and the output should be a lot better. Next up is multi-persona prompting. It's the first one that we ever wrote about on our blog, the first prompting method, and it's still one of my favorites to date. Essentially what it does is it prompts the LLM to get a group of people together to work on whatever task that you are deciding to work on. And so it will get people that are related to the project or the task at hand and kind of run almost like a mini brainstorm that ends with the solution. And so we have the prompt in PromptHub. The beginning of it looks like this. It basically says, when faced with a task, begin by identifying the participants, initiate a multi-round collaboration. And so it kind of puts everyone in the same room and then has them work together. And if we look at, we can check out the template here because there's something I think that is really fun about it, is that you get to see the brainstorm happening live. So for example, so here's the full prompt. And if we look at this example 2, so it says write a poem that meets the following requirements, and it pulls together a poet, a computer scientist, and a 10-year-old, and they kind of all go back and forth until they finally reach a solution. So super interesting, really fun. It's worth trying out. Good for kind of complex reasoning tasks and projects that are interdisciplinary in nature that need to pull on a bunch of different disciplines. Next up, according to prompting, I really like this one because it's very easy to implement. And essentially what it is, if we look at the example here, we have a user who asks some question about when starch is digested and what part of the digestive tube, and the LLM comes back with a short and almost answer with a hallucination, actually. But by adding just according to Wikipedia to the end of the prompt, the LLM is able to ground its answer, knowing, okay, I'm going to go to that source for the answer, and it comes back and it correctly pulls that data from Wikipedia. That is then injected into the output. You can see it's a much more verbose output and also more accurate. And so, again, I really like this because it is a really straightforward way that you can add to a single shot prompt to help reduce hallucinations. The research paper that this was written about touted 20% reduction in hallucinations. And that's a huge win, obviously, especially if you're using this stuff in production. As we talked about yesterday, users have a really good nose for sniffing out AI hallucinations and just AI stuff in general. And so I love low-hanging fruit like this that you can just grab onto and help you kind of make sure your systems are more robust. And so these are useful for situations where if you have a chatbot who needs to be citing sources, anything where you need to cite stuff, this is going to be generally really helpful. Open domain question answer stuff, knowledge-based QA, fact checking, academic research, anywhere where you need to kind of ground stuff. If you're using fine-tuned models and the data that's inside of the that the model has access to, that's even better, because then you could point directly to that and say, go get this from this specific document, file, whatever your fine-tuned model was trained on. Next up, another one of my favorites called emotion prompt. I think it's always interesting. I think LLMs have this funny way of holding up a mirror to us as humans, and emotion prompt certainly builds on that. And what essentially emotion prompt is, it's just usually just a single line of text appended to the end of a prompt that has some sort of emotional stimuli. You can see in the example here, the emotion prompt version just adds on this last bit saying that this is very important to my career. And it's almost astonishing. This is, again, one of those things where it's like little changes can have a really big difference. And this one is absolutely an example of that. I would recommend trying this out today for whatever you're using ChatGPT for, or whatever you're just using AI for, if you're in PromptHub or not, and just see kind of side by side how different things look when trying this out. And again, it's super simple. The research paper has a bunch of different emotional stimuli you can plug into. This is very important to my career, was the top performing one based on their benchmarks. I recommend checking it out. Again, it's linked to our blog. In the post about it, we link to the research paper that lists all of the emotional stimuli that they tried. And the last one we'll look at kind of in depth here. It's called step back prompting. Um, and I really like this one again because it's a single shot prompt. There's no chaining, no additional, LLM calls in parallel that you need to do. It's very straightforward. And it ties into that kind of key principle we talked about yesterday of giving the model room to think. So step back prompting tells the model to kind of step back and first think about kind of concepts or principles related to the question. So rather than jumping right in to solve whatever the task is at hand, it gives the model kind of the leeway to first kind of think abstractly about it, think about what principles might relate to it, to the task at hand, and then use those whatever abstractions that you think of to kind of reason through the question or task at hand and come to a final answer. And so this is really helpful for, I'd say, like reasoning, problem solving, anything in like the STEM field or like analytical stuff. We've seen step back prompting to be really, really helpful. All right, so now we are going to do a little bit of testing here. We're gonna go look back at the prompt we checked out yesterday, that prompt related to which presidents were born in New York. And I ran it again this morning. And if you remember from yesterday, there are 5 presidents who were born in New York. And the model had varying success of getting that correct. And I just ran it normally, the same prompt that we had yesterday. And I got 4, 4, and 4. It's funny, it doesn't even consistently get the wrong one each time. So this one left off Donald Trump. This one left off one of the Roosevelts. This one left off one of the Roosevelts. And so let's see little things we could do here to make this better. Let's just see what happens when we say we'll try the emotion prompt. All right, let's run that. I don't think this actually will have a big change here. We'll see how it does. Motion prompt usually works better for like instruction-based thing rather than just like queries. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're still 1, 2, 3, 4. We're missing Trump there. Again, we have what happened yesterday is we were finding that the model is returning people who spent time in New York but that weren't born there, like Grover Cleveland and Chester Arthur. So let's try and just say, let's remove that last one we did and just say only residents. All right, let's see if that does anything. Mm-hmm. Okay, so 5. This looks like this one's right now. Okay, so we were 0 for 3 last time. Looks like we're 1 for 3 now. So we're going in the kind of right direction. Let's try one more thing. Let's run this one more time. Okay, we're still only, I think, 1 for 3 here. So what if we do like a think? All right. Step four. Mhm. All right, so we still only got 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like I missed out on one of the Roosevelts. And 3. Okay, so we clearly see that like whatever we're doing right now like isn't working. That thinking through step by step just ended up burning a lot of tokens. It didn't even increase our accuracy rate. So I would remove that. And at this point, I would say, hey, let's just try out a different model. I'd probably try out some different methods and like maybe do a couple of different things. But for time's sake, let's just try a different model and see how that runs. And this is an example of what we kind of talked about yesterday, where prompt engineering is a really good place to start because you could see kind of where the errors and where you need to tweak what the problem is with the LLM and what you need to work on. And there you go. Sometimes it is as easy of just using the latest and greatest model. I do think we could probably get this to work with a lesser model. And this would be, again, now I would probably run a batch test where we run this across a bunch of the different models available, and see which ones give us the right answer, and then see if there's any other changes we need to change. You know, if we have an unlimited budget for this, then we could just say, hey, let's just use GPT-4. Hey, Rolf, I see your note about vocalizing what I'm typing. I'll try and do a better job for that for anyone on the smartphone. Um, I'm jealous that you're in the Canary Islands with the sun in your eyes. It's like 28 degrees here in New York. So, but yeah, I'll do a better job of that. Rolf, if you could drop a picture of the beaches there, that would be appreciated. But so this is a good example of just some general prompt testing, um, and what the process can kind of look like. And since this actually worked well, I'm going to commit this in PromptHub, which basically just saves it. Um, and that's important to remember if you're in PromptHub. If you want to save the prompt, you have to commit it. This kind of creates a version history too. So if you're working with your team, my team can come and see what I've been working on, any changes I've made and whatnot. And now I can compare side by side with a different model per se. So let's try running this with Claude Instant, and we'll see how that works as our last little test here. So this is not only a different model, but a different model provider. And we get 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I mean, it messes up a little bit. Claude Instant is kind of like Anthropic's 3.5, so it's not as smart as their Claude 2. All right, moving forward. So now we are going to put together a custom AI application, deploy it, and share it out. And so we're gonna do this with all no-code tools. I'll be pretty methodic moving through this. If there's any questions along the way, feel free to drop them, and I can answer them as we move forward. So one of the questions we get often is, okay, it's great, like all these prompt engineering templates are great, but like what should I use for my use case? I'm doing X, I'm doing Y. And rather than make you read through all of the templates to see which one works for you, it'd be cool if you could just kind of query them. And so let's work on building a prompt that can query this data. I have all of our prompting methods in a Google Sheet here. The name, what it's good at, the description, the use cases. We put this together in preparation for a custom GPT that we'll be building. But in general, we already have it here. So I'm gonna just command click and copy all of this. Jason, yeah, we'll share a link to the spreadsheet, but you'll get something better where you won't have to look through it all yourself, but that will be shared by the end of this. So while PromptHub doesn't support uploading files, we do support variables, and with variables you can add as much text as you want. So I just copied all of those, all this text copy here, and I created a variable called prompt engineering methods, and I just pasted it right in. And even if we did allow for file upload, when a file makes its way to an LLM, it just gets turned into text anyways. But so that's why it's really easy. You can just drop text in, and the model will be smart enough to be able to understand the kind of setup of it. So now I essentially have this file in my PromptHub team variables. I'm going to go to my library, go to my prompts, and I already wrote one this morning for this. And so system message, you're an AI assistant. Your role is to provide prompt engineering guidance to users. And then in the prompt itself, I say, read through our documentation about prompt engineering methods and when they should be used. Then I link, I say, here's the document. And you'll see 3 backticks here. A good kind of best practice whenever adding variables or data or anything you want to separate in your prompt is to use 3 backticks as delimiters, which basically just breaks up the prompt. So the LLM knows, here's this section, here's this section, here's this section. So I say, here's the document, and say the user will share their prompt use case with you. Make sure to use the document to guide your answer. You should output which method will work best, calling it out by name. So user will upload a use case. The LLM will read through that document I just uploaded, and then it will output a method calling it out by name. And I have some variables used here, as I mentioned, that one for the document, and then I also put in a prompt use case, just as like a test one. It says a prompt to analyze code and look for potential security threats. And I ran it this morning, and it says based on the prompt use case, skeleton of thought would be best used, which is a template that we do have. So it's correctly reading that data. And it gives some more information. So again, because this is working well, I'm going to just commit it. And now we have a prompt that we can run in PromptHub that will query that data that I dropped in and give out a method on the other side. But I can kind of only use that here. If I wanted to share this with Dalton, I could tell him to go use, the prompt I've set up here, but that's a little bit of a hassle. So what I'm going to do is actually turn this into a form. And I see a couple questions here, so I'll address real quick. Is there any limitation on the size of the data that you can load into the method? So to the method, I assume you mean into a variable. No, there's basically no limit. I have the whole Great Gatsby uploaded into a variable, for example. You're much more likely to hit a limit on the model side. So however many tokens are available to the model that you're using. And Tinka, what is the value of having the system message separate from the prompt? We talked a lot about system messages yesterday. The short answer is, well, one, they are always separate. The system message is optional, but the system message provides extra guidance. And we did an experiment yesterday where we tested a prompt with the system message and a prompt without. And the one with the system message was much more detailed. It's much better at kind of guiding the prompt. A phrase I like to say is that the system message is like whispering in the model's ear. So it allows you to have additional guidance on top of whatever it's pre-trained on before it works on the task at hand. So we always recommend using it when you can. And then, yeah, no problem. And then Cliff, can you review the difference between the framework that you upload to train the model on, which method you use, and then the input that you provide to get the model to use that method on? And the input that you provide to get the model to use. Okay. Yeah, so the document uploaded itself. Let's go back to that. what I essentially did, so I hit, command copy, and then I came down here and I already created this, but would create a variable and call it, let's say it's Cliff's prompting. And then I could just paste that in. And this is all the data from that sheet. And so you could do this with a PDF, with a Google Sheet, a CSV, a Google Doc, whatever it might be. And once I save that, I can call this from a prompt. So coming in here, I have that exact variable pasted directly into the prompt. So you can always hit the eye icon if you want to open up what your variables look like. So it's essentially just pasting that text in. I make it a variable so it's easier to call in the prompt, and so I don't have to have this like huge dynamic, like ginormous piece of text here. But then so I basically just say, hey, read through this data, and then based on whatever the prompt is at hand, read that data, get me a method, and then let me know which one I should use based on whatever that my prompting use case is, whether it's querying a table, whether it's a sales one, whether it's a coding related prompt. And so then it will query that and then get an answer based on that data. Correct. Yeah, we're not actually doing any analysis of code. We're not running the prompt that's being uploaded. What we're doing is we're finding a solution, a method for the prompt task at hand. Cool. I'm going to keep moving for now. Rajkumar, I do see your question. I'll circle back to it. But so as I mentioned, I want to be able to share this both so I can send it to you guys. So Jason, you won't have to read through the sheet, although I know there's value in the sheet itself, but you'll be able to just use this directly. So I'll add some instructions to this form. I'll say input your prompt use case. What will a prompt research? If anyone has a favorite hex color, feel free to send it. I'll leave it as blue for now. And then coming down here, we have our variables section. And so this was another reason why I actually put the prompt use case as a variable, so then I could pull it through to the form. But we don't need the methods variable, the one that actually has all the methods listed out from the CSV. But that doesn't need to be an input. We just need this prompt use case. We just need people to fill that out. All right, and so the only variable I need on this form is for people to input whatever prompt use case that they have. I added some filler text here to help guide the users, and now I can share this. And now it's live. Now I can share this with my team. I can make it private. I can make it public. I'll drop it in here. Hopefully it should work fine. So let's say my prompt is a summarizer prompt with the latest AI. And so again, with forms, it makes it much easier to share this stuff. And we can see it's telling me to use the chain of density method, which is that lines up well because chain of density is related to summarization. It gives you some information as to why. And then I can kind of take that and run with it. I can go to PromptHub and grab a template and start using it. And there's definitely some improvements we can make here, but this makes it really easy to deploy something that you and your team would start to get use out of almost right away. And so you're able to do that, and it's essentially an AI application. You're able to get that up and running in just kind of a few minutes with custom data, with a shareable link that you can, tweak. You can embed it in Notion. You can have these all kind of bells and whistles on top of it as well. And next up, we're going to make a kind of news summarizer that will run automatically based on AI news from a Feedly board. And so we're basically going to look how you can embed PromptHub prompts into Zapier to create more workflows, stuff that's helpful for your actual business in the same way that the form that we just built was. And I got this use case from a woman named Sarah Davison. She's on LinkedIn. She does a lot of AI content, so I definitely recommend checking her out. And this was pulled from some of the stuff that she's done. So let's do it. So quickly, we are going to go over the steps to create this. In general, we are going to be pulling article data from Feedly. When something is added to a board, Feedly is just like a news aggregator, as I said. It's kind of like Flipboard. There's a couple of different other similar products in the market. I have this personal board called AI News. And what I want to do is when I go add stuff to that board, I want to run a prompt that summarizes that article and sends it to my team. Because presumably I'm adding it because it's something important or something related to AI or something related to our business. And I wanted to summarize it, send it to me, send it to my team so we could stay up to date on this stuff. So coming in to Zapier, we're going to turn this off, but the trigger is a new article in board. I've already set up to my account, and the board is that AI news board we were just looking at. And then I'll recreate the PromptHub step here. Looks good to me. So we'll add a step. If you're a Zapier user, you can just type in look for PromptHub. Choose an event. We only have one, which is going to be to run a prompt. My account's already set up. And all right, it's just asking for a prompt ID. So let's go to PromptHub and we're going to write this prompt real quick. So something that's important is to know the data that we're going to get back from Feedly. I already took a look and it looks like we get a title. We get the content itself. There's a summary. There's a bunch of different things for us to hook into, but I know there's at least a title and a summary. So coming back to PromptHub, I've created this article summarizer prompt. And it's a little built out. It could be built out more. I wrote it this morning, and it just basically says you're a seasoned content creator specializing in translating tech-related news about AI into understandable content. So that's a system message, again, kind of providing that guidance, that high level. And then coming down the prompt, more specific, your job is to curate distilled articles on AI, highlighting the relevance and implications. Please include the following: a headline and a source, key takeaways, industry relevance, making concise, don't make it clickbaity or include emojis. And then I have, here is the article title, and then a variable, and then here is the article content. And the reasons I'm using variables here is so that I can hook into them in Zapier themselves and ingest that data from Feedly. And so I've already run this and committed it. And so it's saved. And the one thing that Zapier will ask for is the ID, which you can find right on the end here. So 1048. So once I insert that, you could see now I can insert data into those two variables, article title and article. So here we have the article title, which I can grab from Feedly, and then the content. Here it is. I'm going to delete this old one that I set up. And so now what it's doing, it is going to take, again, that article title I'm getting from Feedly and that content, plug it into this prompt and run it. And hopefully that should work. Cool. And we could see, we get a response. We get, yeah, we get all that stuff that we asked for, the headline and the source, the takeaways, the industry relevance. This is all looking good here. And the last step is I'll just have it send a Slack message. And I've already like hooked all that up. That all looks good. So I'm going to turn this on. Great. And then I'm going to, again, remember the trigger is me adding something to a board. So I'll add this to my AI news board. And then let me pull up my Slack and see if that is run successfully. Mm-hmm. And yep, it is run successfully. So we see here, this is in the random channel, and it's pulling in whatever that article was related to. What was it? Unity Caps Engineering and AI into your workflows and how PromptHub can kind of help you with all that. And there are a lot of benefits to, someone you might wonder why not just have this as like an open AI step in Zapier. There are a lot of benefits to kind of, again, having this stuff run through PromptHub. One big one is that we'll log all these requests for you, and so you can look back on them. And if you need to debug anything, you could see what was sent, the variables that were sent. So this is recording all of those runs from Zapier as well. In addition to all the other benefits of kind of having all your prompts in one place, organized. People can update the prompt without having to touch the Zapier app. It will just update automatically. And again, there's a lot of benefits on top of that too. But that's just a quick example of how that took us maybe 10 minutes to set up. But now that can run daily. We could change it. We can make edits to it to make it run automatically rather than having for it to trigger when I do something. You could even imagine how this could help you run an AI newsletter itself, and how this could take a lot of the heavy lifting off of you. And that wraps it up for today. We've got 5 minutes left. I know there was a couple of questions in there I didn't get to. Raj Kumar, you're saying if we hit the token limit, if we send that huge data that's under variable, do we know any model that is limitless? None. I don't know any models that are limitless, and certainly none of the ones that we have in PromptHub. We do support the latest GPT-4 Turbo model, which has a huge context window, and we also support the latest Claude 2.1, which also has a huge context window of 200,000 tokens. So you should be able, I think that's like 500 pages of a book. I've already been running like prompts with The Great Gatsby, which is a shorter book. But while there aren't any that are limitless, the windows are getting large enough that hopefully shouldn't be an issue. Jeff, let's see. Does the which prompt method to choose form record the prompt use case field? Yes, it does. So as I showed before, and we can actually go look at it. So as an admin, you will be tracking those, whatever is filled into the form, which is helpful for a number of reasons. We even see people add an email field just as a variable, which is kind of like a hacky way if you wanted to kind of create a lead magnet. But coming in here, I can go to my logs, and I can see a couple people here have already filled it out, but I can come to mine and I can see what was filled in. So I can see that my prompt is a summarizer prompt for the latest AI news. So you'll be able to see those in the logs here. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. All right. Any other questions or anything we can address while we're still here? Feel free to drop it in the chat. Again, this will all be shared. Recordings will be sent out to everyone on the list. Tomorrow we'll be going into a little bit more on the security reliability side. We'll have some like prompt hacking challenges, and we'll end up wrapping things up, but talking a lot about defenses and security. If there's anything else particularly helpful today, definitely feel free to let me know, and we can kind of try and focus again more on that tomorrow. But yeah, other than that, we'll make a lot of this stuff public. These apps will be public at some point, so you'll be able to set them up, play around with them, just like with a single click. I'll make public a lot of the templates that we're looking at, and the sheets, the resources, the documents that will also be eventually shared as well. Oh, and one last thing, we talked about our latency newsletter yesterday when talking about which model to pick. Dalton, if you could share the link to that, because I remember we didn't share it yesterday. And I'll share it in the email that gets sent out as well. But as I mentioned, yeah, when you're selecting a model, you kind of have that triangle of performance, cost, and speed. And so our latency newsletter is a really good way to stay up to date with the latest changes in speed for the models. All right. See, Raj Kumar, last question. You tried blob storage in Azure.